The planet Arender was a world of gray skies and silent cities. Once full of life, the streets now lay cracked and empty, and the air carried a cold, heavy sadness. The humanoids who lived there moved slowly, their faces tired and their eyes shadowed with worry. They remembered stories from long ago, tales of green forests, clear rivers, and skies that shone with golden light. But those days had passed, and the planet seemed to have forgotten its own beauty. Lara, a young humanoid with sharp eyes and a restless spirit, walked carefully through the remains of her home. The buildings were hollowed shells, and the walls were covered in strange marks left by years of neglect. She loved wandering through the ruins, imagining what the city had looked like before despair had taken over. Today, her steps carried her to a place she had never explored, the edge of an old square where sunlight barely touched the ground as she examined a pile of broken stones. Her fingers brushed against something smooth and warm. She pulled it from the dirt and gasped. It was a small round object, unlike anything she had seen. Its surface shimmered with a faint golden light, and tiny symbols glowed across it like a message waiting to be read. Lyra held it close, feeling a strange warmth spread through her body. It was as if the object was alive, and it knew her. Ran home to show the artifact to her grandmother, a wise humanoid who had watched over her since she was a child. Her grandmother's eyes widened when she saw the object, and she quickly pulled Lyra aside. "Where did you find this?" she whispered, her voice tight with worry. "In the old square," Lyra replied, her voice shaking with excitement. "It was under the stones. I think it's trying to tell me something." Her grandmother's gaze softened, but her worry remained. "This is dangerous, Lyra. The artifact comes from the past. Our ancestors made powerful things. They were wise and strong, but their creations were not always meant to be touched by the living. It can awaken memories that are too heavy for us now." Lyra looked at the artifact, its light dancing in her palms. She felt a pull in her chest, a strange urgency. She could not ignore it. The world around her felt empty, gray, and heavy with sorrow. Perhaps this small glowing object could show her a way to bring back what had been lost. That night, Lyra stayed awake, hiding the artifact under her blanket. She studied it, turning it gently in her hands. Suddenly, the symbols on its surface began to shift and swirl. A soft hum filled the room, and a small image appeared in the air above it. Lyra gasped. She saw a vision of green forests, rivers that sparkled like glass, and cities alive with color and energy. She saw humanoids laughing, running, and building together. The vision felt so real that she could smell the fresh air and feel the warmth of the sun. Tears filled Lyra's eyes. She had never imagined the world could look like this. She realized that this artifact was a window to the past. Her ancestors had left messages for the future, hoping someone would remember what life could be. But there was sadness, too. She saw cities destroyed, forests burned, and rivers dried. The ancestors' cries were not only of joy, but also of warning. The next morning, Lyra could not stop thinking about the vision. She wanted to tell others, but she knew the elders might not understand. The Council of Elders had long discouraged dreams of the past. They said it was safer to accept the gray world and not hope for change. Lyra understood their caution, but she also knew she could not forget the light and life she had seen. With a quiet determination, Lyra decided she would learn more. She would explore the old ruins in secret and try to understand the messages of her ancestors. She packed a small bag with water, some dried food, and the glowing artifact safely wrapped. As she stepped out into the gray streets, the sun broke through the clouds for a brief moment, casting a thin beam of light on the ground. Lyra felt a spark of hope. Perhaps the world was not completely lost. She moved carefully through the city, observing broken statues and shattered fountains. Each ruin seemed to whisper stories from the past, stories of creation, growth, and care. Lyra listened closely, imagining the laughter of children and the songs of birds that once filled the air. She stopped at the edge of a collapsed wall and saw a carving partially hidden by moss. It looked like the shape of the artifact in her hands. She traced the symbols with her fingers and felt the hum of energy stronger than before. Lyra knew this was only the beginning. The artifact was a guide, a voice from the ancestors calling her to action. She felt both fear and excitement. The world was in despair, but for the first time in her life, she believed there might be a way to restore it. The ancestors had reached out, and she had answered Dot as the gray sky shifted and clouds moved like silent watchers. Lyra stood tall. She held the artifact close and whispered to herself, "I will listen. I will remember. I will try to bring back the light." With that promise, she took the first step into a journey that could change the fate of all humanoids on Arendar. The sun rose slowly over the gray horizon, painting the cracked streets with pale light. Lyra held the artifact tightly in her hands as she walked toward the outskirts of the city. Her heart beat faster with every step. She had decided to keep her discovery secret for now. The Council of Elders might not understand, and some humanoids feared anything connected to the past Dot as she moved through the ruins. Lyra noticed faint patterns on the wall symbols, similar to those on the artifact. She touched one and felt a small pulse of energy travel through her fingers. A soft hum filled the air, and suddenly, the ground beneath her feet seemed to vibrate. The artifact glowed brighter, projecting tiny lights that danced around her like fireflies. Lyra gasped. She had never seen anything like this. A vision appeared before her eyes. Lyra saw her ancestors walking in the forests, tending to rivers and fields. They built cities with care, teaching one another and sharing knowledge. Their faces were strong and kind, and their voices carried songs of hope. Lyra felt a deep connection to them. She realized that these beings, though long gone, had left a message not just to remember the past, but to guide the present. The vision changed suddenly. She saw the forest turn brown, rivers dry, and cities crumble. Humanoids argued and fought. She felt the pain of the ancestors, their cries echoing across time. Lyra's hands trembled. Why did this happen? She whispered. She understood that her world had not always been gray, but neglect and fear had brought despair. The ancestors' warning was clear. If the humanoids forgot their responsibility, the planet would suffer. Determined, Lyra decided she needed help. She could not do this alone. She returned to the city and visited her closest friends, Ronnie, a clever young humanoid with skill in machines, and Talo, a brave and kind friend who always believed in doing the right thing. She showed them the artifact and shared what she had seen. Ronnie's eyes widened in amazement. "This is incredible," she said. "It is like a window to the past. We could learn so much from this." Talo nodded, his jaw set with determination. "If this is the message of our ancestors, we cannot ignore it. We must find a way to help our people and restore the planet." The three friends formed a secret group, meeting in abandoned buildings and quiet streets. Lyra showed them the visions, and they worked together to understand the symbols and carvings left by the ancestors. They discovered hints about old technology machines that could clean water, restore soil, and even help plants grow faster. Each discovery made them more determined. They realized that their ancestors had left tools for the future, hoping someone would use them wisely. As days passed, the artifact grew stronger. Lyra noticed that when they were near it, the air felt lighter, and tiny green sprouts appeared where she walked. The artifact seemed to respond to hope, growing brighter when they worked together. The friends began to believe that the gray world could change, but not everyone welcomed their efforts. Some humanoids whispered that the artifact was dangerous, that it might bring trouble if disturbed. Lyra ignored their fear. She knew that despair had lasted too long, and the ancestors' message was meant to inspire courage, not fear. One evening, the artifact projected a new vision. Lyra saw her group traveling to the northern wastelands, the last region where rivers still flowed. There, her ancestors had hidden the most important machines, protected by trials and challenges. The vision felt real, and Lyra could almost hear the rushing water and smell the fresh earth. She understood that this journey would not be easy. They would face dangers, both from the land and from those who resisted change. The next morning, Lyra and her friends packed supplies. They took the artifact carefully, knowing it was both a guide and a key to their mission. As they left the city, humanoids stared at them from doorways and windows. Some were curious, others fearful. Lyra held her head high. "We are not running from the past," she said to Rani and Talo. "We are following it. We are answering the cry of our ancestors." Their path led through ruined villages and forests, slowly reclaiming the land. The closer they came to the northern wastelands, the stronger the artifact's glow became. Tiny lights appeared along the edges of the path, guiding them forward. Each step felt purposeful. Lyra felt that the ancestors were walking beside them, encouraging them to continue. As night fell, they camped beneath a broken archway of an old city gate. The stars shone faintly through the clouds, and the artifact's hum filled the quiet air. Lyra looked at her friends and smiled. "We are small, but we are not powerless," she said. "If we listen, if we act, we can change everything." Rani and Talo nodded, their eyes bright with hope. They knew the journey ahead would be difficult, but they also knew that despair was not the only choice. The ancestors had left their message, and now it was time for the new generation to rise. As they settled down for the night, the artifact's glow pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. Lyra felt a warmth in her chest, a sense of purpose she had never known before. The cries of the ancestors were no longer only a warning, they were a call to action. And for the first time in many years, hope began to grow in the hearts of the humanoids. The northern wasteland stretched endlessly before Lyra, Rani, and Talo. The land was dry and cracked, and the wind carried dust that stung their eyes. Trees were rare, and the sun, though pale, beat down relentlessly. Yet, despite the harshness, the artifact in Lyra's hands pulsed with a gentle glow, guiding them forward. The closer they moved to the northern rivers, the stronger the sense of purpose grew within them. Rani led the way, her sharp mind working to read the symbols carved into broken stones along the path. "These markers show the safest route," she said. "Our ancestors wanted us to reach this place without being harmed by the land itself." Talo scanned the horizon, always alert for danger. "We must stay together," he said firmly. "The wastelands can be cruel, and the world is not ready for our work if we lose each other." As they walked, Lyra studied the artifact. It seemed to respond to her thoughts and feelings. When she thought of hope, it glowed brighter. When fear crept into her mind, the glow dimmed. She realized that the artifact was more than a tool. It was alive in its own way, connected to the strength of the humanoids who believed in it. Hours passed, and they reached the ruins of an old city. The buildings leaned dangerously, and walls were broken, but the artifact's light pointed to a narrow passage between two collapsed towers. They squeezed through the gap carefully, finding a hidden courtyard filled with strange machines, covered in dust but still intact. Lyra knelt before one of the machines. Its surface was cold, but intricate symbols etched into it seemed familiar from the artifact. "These must be the devices our ancestors left for us," she said softly. "They are the key to bringing life back to our world." Rani and Talo helped clear the dust and debris, discovering mechanisms that could purify water, restore soil, and even assist in growing plants faster. Each discovery brought excitement and hope. Suddenly, a shadow moved at the edge of the courtyard. Talo stepped forward, shielding his friends. A humanoid appeared, older and wary, holding a crude staff. "Who are you?" the stranger demanded. "Why are you here?" Lyra stood tall. "We are following the message of the ancestors," she said. "These machines are meant to help our world. We do not mean harm." The stranger hesitated, eyes narrowing. "Many of us do not trust these old ways," he said. "The past brought disaster. Why should I believe your mission will succeed?" Ronnie spoke next. "We have seen the visions. The ancestors wanted us to learn from them, to restore life and hope. If we do nothing, our world will remain in despair forever." The stranger studied them for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "Perhaps you are right," he said, "but the path will not be easy. Others will resist. Some will fear change more than they value life." The group realized that even with the artifact and the machines, they were not alone in their struggle. Some humanoids had lost faith, and fear still held strong. Yet, this encounter also showed that dialogue and courage could sway hearts. The stranger decided to help them, and together they began testing the devices. Water flowed again in a small, dry fountain, sparkling under the sun. Tiny sprouts appeared in the cracked soil. The artifact's glow brightened as if approving their efforts. Lyra felt a thrill of hope. "This is just the beginning," she said. "If we continue, more places will awaken, and more humanoids will believe." That night, they camped within the ruins. The stranger shared stories of his people, of villages that had fallen and rivers that had dried. He spoke of despair and survival, of the fear that kept humanoids from acting. Lyra listened closely. She realized that healing the world meant more than machines. It meant teaching others to hope again. Ronnie carefully adjusted the artifact, and a faint image appeared above it. It showed rivers flowing, trees growing, and cities full of life. "The ancestors are showing us the next steps," she said. "We must travel further north. There, we will find the most important machines. If we succeed, the world can truly begin to recover." The next morning, they set off again. The path was rough, and the wind carried a constant reminder of the harshness of the wastelands. Yet the friends felt stronger than before. They understood that their mission was not only about restoring the planet, but about inspiring the humanoids themselves. Every step, every small success, was a spark in the darkness. As they moved forward, the artifact pulsed steadily, casting small lights along their path. Lyra thought of her ancestors and whispered, "We are listening. We will act. Your cry is heard." The wind seemed to answer, carrying a soft hum that made her heart race with courage. Despite the difficulties, the group pressed on. They knew that challenges awaited resistance, danger, and moments of doubt, but they were ready. Together, with hope, courage, and the guidance of the ancestors, they would face whatever lay ahead. The cry of the ancestors was no longer a distant echo. It was a living call, and they were determined to answer it. The northern wastelands became even harsher as Lyra, Ronnie, and Talo moved closer to the heart of the desolate region. The ground was uneven, littered with jagged stones and broken remnants of once great structures. The wind carried fine sand that stung their faces and made every step exhausting. Yet the artifact in Lyra's hands continued to glow, faint but steady, as if encouraging them to go forward. Ronnie led the way through a narrow canyon where sunlight barely reached the bottom. The walls were covered with symbols that seemed familiar from the artifact. "Our ancestors wanted us to see these markings," she said. "They are warnings and instructions. We must pay close attention or risk failure." Lyra and Talo followed, their eyes scanning each wall carefully. Suddenly, a faint vibration ran through the ground. The artifact pulsed brighter, and Lyra felt a thrill of anticipation. From the shadows emerged a group of small mechanical drones, old but still functional. They hovered silently, scanning the travelers. Lyra stepped forward and held up the artifact. The drones stopped and circled the group calmly, then retreated, opening a hidden passageway in the rock wall. "This must be a test," Lyra whispered. "The ancestors left these trials to see if we were ready." Rani nodded, excitement in her eyes. "Every challenge shows our worth and commitment. We must continue carefully." Talo tightened his grip on a walking staff. "We will. Together. Nothing can stop us." The passage led them to a series of underground tunnels. The air was damp and cold, and the sound of dripping water echoed off the walls. The artifact's glow reflected on the stone, revealing carvings and ancient machines partially buried in dust. Lyra knelt by one of the devices and brushed off the dirt. Symbols appeared as if awakened, and a soft hum filled the air. She could feel the energy of the ancestors flowing through it. Hours passed as they explored the tunnels. They discovered water purification devices, soil restoration machines, and storage chambers filled with seeds of plants long extinct on the surface. Each discovery filled them with awe and renewed determination. Lyra realized that their ancestors had not only foreseen the hardships but had prepared solutions for those who dared to act. Suddenly, the artifact projected a vision. Lyra saw her group facing dangerous lands above the tunnels, collapsing cliffs, sudden sandstorms, and areas where the earth itself tried to swallow the unwary. She saw that perseverance and unity were the only ways to succeed. The vision ended, leaving the friends with a clear understanding of the journey ahead. The trio emerged from the tunnels into a wide, barren valley. The wind howled, carrying dust and debris that made breathing difficult. Yet in the distance, they saw a faint shimmer of water, the first sign of a surviving river. Lyra's heart raced with hope. "We are close," she said. "The river is still alive. If we reach it, we can test the machines and bring life back here." As they moved toward the river, a group of humanoids appeared on a ridge above them. They were armed with makeshift weapons and scowled down at the travelers. "What are you doing here?" one of them shouted. "This land belongs to those who obey the old ways. Leave or face the consequences." Talo stepped forward, raising his hands in peace. "We mean no harm. We follow the message of our ancestors. We want to restore life, to heal the land for everyone." Lyra added, "The artifact shows the way. It calls us to help, not to fight. You can join us if you choose, or watch life return to the wastelands." The humanoids hesitated, unsure. Some were moved by Lyra's words, while others shook their heads in disbelief. Slowly, a few stepped down from the ridge and joined the travelers. The others retreated, still wary but silent. Lyra smiled, realizing that courage and hope could change hearts as much as actions. At the river, they tested the machines. Water flowed through purification channels, and soil near the banks became soft and fertile. Tiny sprouts emerged where they planted seeds, and small insects returned to the revived patches of earth. The artifact glowed brighter, almost as if cheering their success. Lyra felt a deep sense of pride and purpose. That night, they camped by the river. The stars reflected in the clear water, and for the first time in years, the northern wastelands seemed peaceful. Lyra held the artifact close and whispered, "We are doing it. We are listening to you, ancestors. Your cry has not been wasted." Rani and Talo nodded, their faces illuminated by the soft glow. They knew that more trials awaited, but they also knew that hope, courage, and teamwork could overcome even the harshest challenges. As they slept, the artifact pulsed gently, as if assuring them that they were on the right path. Lyra dreamed of the ancestors walking beside them, guiding, teaching, and encouraging. She understood now that the journey was as important as the destination. Every challenge, every trial, was a lesson meant to strengthen them for the future. The next day, the friends would continue north, toward the most important machines hidden by the ancestors. They would face sandstorms, treacherous terrain, and moments of doubt, but they were ready. With the artifact and the message of the ancestors, they would restore life and hope to the planet. The cry of the ancestors had been answered, and the world was beginning to awaken. The morning sun rose over the northern river, painting the water in golden light. Lyra, Rani, and Talo stood on the bank, watching as small green sprouts grew along the fertile soil. The artifact in Lyra's hands pulsed steadily, like a heartbeat, guiding them forward. Their journey had brought them this far, and now they could see the first real signs of life returning to the wastelands. "This is incredible," Rani said, kneeling beside a patch of soil where tiny plants had pushed through. "Our ancestors left these machines to heal the land, and we can finally use them." Lyra nodded, smiling. "This is just the beginning. If we succeed here, we can show the others that life can return." Talo scanned the horizon, but we must be careful. Not all humanoids will welcome change. Some will fear it or try to stop us. Lyra looked at him, determination shining in her eyes. "We have the artifact and the knowledge of the ancestors. We will face whatever comes together." They spent the day repairing and activating the machines. Water purification devices worked perfectly, sending clear streams into the dry riverbeds. Soil restoration machines churned the earth, making it soft and fertile. Seeds from the ancient chambers began to sprout quickly, and the first insects and small animals cautiously returned to the area. The trio felt hope grow stronger with every step of progress as they worked. More humanoids approached from nearby villages. At first, they watched silently, unsure of what to make of the activity. Some whispered to one another, their fear evident in their voices. Others were curious, drawn to the glowing artifact and the energy it emitted. Lyra stepped forward and addressed them. "We are following the message of our ancestors," she said. "This land can live again, and it can support all of us. You can help or watch, but we must act now." Slowly, some humanoids joined in. They carried tools, moved soil, and helped water the young plants. Even those who had doubted the artifact's power began to see results. The river grew clearer, the soil became fertile, and patches of green spread across the once barren land. Lyra felt a surge of pride. The work was difficult, but together, they were making a difference. The artifact projected another vision that evening. It showed the trio traveling further north, where the largest and most powerful machines of the ancestors were hidden. These machines could restore entire forests and create lasting water supplies. The vision also warned of dangers, steep cliffs, strong winds, and hostile humanoids who feared change. Lyra understood that the journey ahead would test not only their courage, but also the strength of their unity. That night, they camped near the river. The stars reflected in the calm water, and the soft hum of the artifact filled the quiet air. Lyra thought of her ancestors and whispered, "We are listening. We are acting. Your cry is guiding us." Rani and Talo nodded, their faces showing both exhaustion and determination. They knew the road ahead would not be easy, but they also knew they had begun something that could change their world forever. The next morning, a strong wind swept across the river valley, carrying dust and debris from the northern cliffs. The artifact glowed brightly, warning them of the approaching storm. Lyra held it close, feeling its energy flow through her. "We must move carefully," she said. "The ancestors prepared these machines, but we must respect the land and its dangers." They packed their supplies and began the climb toward the cliffs. The wind howled around them, and the ground beneath their feet was loose and uneven. Rani used her knowledge of machines to stabilize some of the pathways with rocks and metal. Pieces from the ruins Tao guided the group, watching for danger and keeping their pace steady. Lyra focused on the artifact, letting its light show them the safest way forward. Hours later, they reached a high plateau where ancient structures stood, partially hidden by sand and stone. The machines here were massive, designed to work together, to purify water, grow forests, and restore life on a large scale. Lyra knelt before the largest one, brushing away centuries of dust and dirt. The symbols on its surface matched those on the artifact perfectly. When she placed the artifact near it, a soft hum filled the air, and the machine slowly came to life. Water flowed through long channels. Green shoots emerged from the soil, and small animals cautiously returned. The artifact glowed brighter than ever, signaling that the ancestors were pleased. Lyra felt a sense of deep connection and purpose. Their work was no longer just about survival. It was about reclaiming the planet, restoring hope, and honoring those who had come before them. As night fell, the trio looked over the valley. Patches of green spread across the wasteland, rivers glimmered in the moonlight, and life was returning. More humanoids had joined them, inspired by their courage and determination. Lyra knew that challenges still waited, but for the first time in many years, hope felt real. The ancestors' cry had not gone unheard. They had answered, and the world had begun to awaken. The morning sun rose slowly over the northern plateau, casting golden light across the restored patches of green. Lyra, Rani, and Tao stood at the edge of the largest machine, watching the rivers flow clearly and the plants grow quickly. There, work had already begun to transform the wastelands, but they knew the hardest challenges were still ahead. Some humanoids were not ready for change, and others still feared the power of the artifact as they prepared to continue their journey. A group of humanoids appeared from the shadows. These were not the curious ones who had joined them before. Their faces were filled with fear and distrust. They carried crude tools and shouted warnings, claiming the artifact and the machines were dangerous. Lyra stepped forward calmly. "We do not wish to harm anyone," she said. "We follow the message of our ancestors. They left these tools to restore life, not to bring destruction. If we work together, everyone can benefit." One of the humanoids stepped closer, shaking his head. "We have seen what happens when old ways are disturbed," he said. "The past brought disaster, and we will not allow it again." Rani placed a hand on the artifact. Its light pulsed strongly, and the machines around them hummed in response. "We are not the past," she said firmly. "We are the future. We can learn from the ancestors and restore life to this land. But fear cannot stop us. Only courage and action can." Talo added, "You do not have to fight us. You can join us and see the change for yourselves. The rivers are flowing, the soil is fertile, and life is returning. If you refuse, you will watch despair continue. The choice is yours." The humanoids hesitated. Some lowered their tools, curiosity replacing fear. Others remained cautious but silent. Slowly, one by one, they stepped closer. The artifact glowed brighter, as if sensing their willingness to believe. Lyra smiled, feeling hope grow stronger. Even in the face of resistance, courage and unity could begin to heal hearts as well as land. The group spent the day teaching the newcomers how to use the machines. Rani explained the purification channels. Talo showed how to plant seeds carefully, and Lyra shared the visions of the ancestors. The humanoids watched closely, their doubts slowly fading as they saw water flow and green shoots emerge from the soil. By evening, most of them were helping, carrying water, planting seeds, and tending to the growing life. That night, the artifact projected another vision. Lyra saw areas far beyond the northern plateau, where deserts had taken over and rivers had disappeared. She saw machines waiting in hidden chambers, guarded by natural obstacles. She realized that their work would soon require long journeys through dangerous terrain. But the vision also showed unity and cooperation. Groups of humanoids worked together, restoring life and healing the planet. Lyra understood that their mission was no longer just theirs. It was the responsibility of all humanoids who chose to act. The next morning, a strong wind swept across the plateau. The artifact glowed intensely, warning them of approaching storms. Lyra, Ronnie, Talo, and the newly joined humanoids packed their supplies and prepared for the journey. They would face high cliffs, unstable paths, and sudden sandstorms, but they were ready. The artifact's light guided them, showing the safest routes and alerting them to hidden dangers as they traveled. The group encountered pockets of resistance. Some humanoids refused to believe in the ancestors' message. They tried to sabotage machines and block paths. Lyra spoke calmly to them, showing the results of their efforts and explaining the purpose of the artifact. Slowly, even the skeptical began to see the change. The rivers were flowing, plants were growing, and the land itself seemed to respond to their actions. By the time night fell, they had reached the edge of a deep canyon. A faint river ran through its base, and patches of green clung to the steep walls. The artifact pulsed brightly, signaling the presence of more machines hidden within the canyon. Lyra looked at her friends and the group of newly inspired humanoids. "We are almost there," she said. "The ancestors left these tools for us, and now it is our turn to use them. Together, we can heal this land and show all humanoids that hope is stronger than fear." The group set up camp near the canyon edge. The stars reflected in the river below, and the artifact glowed softly in the night. Lyra held it close and whispered to the ancestors, "We are listening. We are acting. Your cry has guided us this far, and we will continue until life returns to every corner of our world." Rani and Talo nodded beside her. They felt tired but determined. The artifact's hum filled the air, as if answering with reassurance. 4. The first time in generations, hope spread among the humanoids. They had faced resistance, fear, and doubt, but courage and unity had carried them forward. The cry of the ancestors was no longer a distant memory. It was alive in every river, every sprout, and every humanoid who chose to believe. The world was awakening, and Lyra knew that the hardest work was still ahead. But together, they could meet any challenge. The morning sun rose over the northern canyon, shining on rivers that sparkled like crystal and green patches of life that spread across the barren land. Lyra, Rani, Talo, and their group of humanoids stood at the edge, looking down at the valley below. The artifact in Lyra's hands glowed brightly, its energy strong and steady. This was the moment they had worked for, the moment when hope could become reality. "Look at it," Talo said quietly, his voice filled with awe. "The land, it is alive again." Rani smiled, kneeling to touch the green soil. "We did this together," she said. "The ancestors left the tools, but we brought them to life." Lyra nodded, feeling a deep warmth in her chest. The journey had been long and difficult, but the reward was clear. Life was returning, and humanoids were beginning to believe in their own power to heal their world. The group moved carefully down into the valley. Rivers ran through channels, carrying clear water to fertile soil. Plants of all shapes and sizes were growing quickly, and small animals returned to drink and explore. The artifact guided them to hidden machines buried beneath sand and stone. One by one, they activated them, watching as the land transformed before their eyes. Hills turned green, trees sprouted along riverbanks, and the air seemed fresher, carrying the scent of life. As they worked, more humanoids from distant villages arrived. They had heard of the changes and came to see for themselves. At first, many were cautious, unsure of the artifact and the machines. But as they saw water flow and plants grow, their fear began to fade. Lyra spoke to them, her voice steady and full of hope. This is what our ancestors wanted. They left their knowledge for us so we could restore our world. You can join us, or you can watch despair continue. The choice is yours. Slowly, the humanoids stepped forward. They helped carry seeds, repair machines, and water the growing plants. Rani guided them in using the ancient technology, showing them how to respect the land while restoring it. Talo led groups to explore new areas, ensuring that everyone worked safely. Lyra moved among them, holding the artifact and watching. As hope grew in their eyes, by midday, the valley had transformed. Rivers flowed freely, trees swayed in the wind, and patches of grass covered the barren soil. The artifact pulsed brightly, and its hum filled the air with a gentle, steady rhythm. Lyra felt the presence of the ancestors, their energy surrounding her, guiding and encouraging. The cry of the ancestors had been heard, and it was no longer one of despair. It was a song of triumph and hope. But even with success, challenges remained. Some humanoids resisted change, clinging to fear and old habits. Lyra approached them calmly. "The past brought lessons, not chains," she said. "We can learn from the ancestors and choose a better future. Life is stronger than fear, and together we can restore everything that was lost." Slowly, the skeptical humanoids joined in, seeing the beauty of the restored land and the strength of unity. As night fell, the valley was alive with movement. Small fires reflected on the water. Humanoids worked together, and the soft glow of the artifact illuminated the growing life. Lyra stood on a hill, looking at the transformed landscape. The rivers wound through the valley like silver ribbons. Forests were forming in gentle clusters, and the air was filled with the sounds of animals returning. She felt a deep pride and joy. Their world, once gray and lifeless, was alive again. Artifact pulsed one last time that night, casting a golden light across the valley. Lyra whispered softly, "We have listened. We have acted. Your cry has been answered." Rani and Talo joined her, their faces illuminated by the glow. Around them, humanoids rested, worked, and celebrated quietly. Hope had returned, stronger than it had ever been. In the days that followed, the transformation continued. Humanoids from other regions traveled to help, sharing knowledge and tools. Machines that had been hidden for centuries were restored and used to heal more areas. Rivers reached dry plains, forests began to spread, and the sky, once gray, started to clear. The world was waking from a long slumber, and life was returning everywhere. Lyra stood at the highest hill, looking out over the valley. The artifact glowed softly, then dimmed, as if satisfied. She realized that the journey was not over, but the hardest part had been achieved. Humanoids had learned courage, unity, and the power of hope. The cry of the ancestors had become a guiding light, leading them toward a future full of life and possibility. For the first time in generations, humanoids looked at their world and believed in themselves. They had answered the call of their ancestors. They had faced despair, fear, and resistance, but they had risen. The planet, once gray and lifeless, now flourished under the care of those who listened, acted, and believed. Lyra smiled, feeling the energy of the artifact fade gently. She knew the future was theirs to shape, and that hope would continue to grow as long as humanoids remembered the lessons of the past. The ancestors had called, and their descendants had answered. The world was alive and life would endure.